There's not a chance in hell that this is funny. When you see those flat, corny, late-night monologue jokes, Colbert, Jimmy Kimmel, Fallon, what they're doing is just like reading off of a teleprompter. There's applause signs, and then there's producers. There's the warm-up guide. It's literally telling people the clock. They're like, okay, explain to the people. Okay, when Jimmy comes out, I want a big round of applause. Let's practice this right now. Ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy Fallon. Yeah! And everybody
practice.
When you find out Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly just tag team to obliterate every late-night host in existence, you'll realize sarcasm isn't dead. It just went on their podcast. Rogan's throwing haymakers at recycled punchlines, Megyn slicing through smug monologues like a hot mick through butter, and Fallon Kimmel Colbert. They're ducking harder than their writers during a joke shortage. What did they reveal that has late night looking like a cringe compilation? Oh, it's funnier than anything those hosts have said in years.
We'll tell you, he's not the worst. The Daily Show has the worst ratings. They only have 366,000 people watching that show. During the Jon Stewart years, it was over 2 million. Now it's down to 300,000. Seth Meyers, absolutely dreadful. He doesn't even have 1 million. 778,000. I mean, in network television, this is, you don't have to pay for it. It's there when you turn on your TV. You plug it in. That's a dreadful number. Greg Gutfeld on cable, which you do have to pay for, it has more than...
Imagine hosting a comedy show with the emotional depth of a parking ticket and the political nuance of a Twitter thread written during a Red Bull crash. That's basically what late-night television has become, and Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly, they're not even swinging anymore. They're just casually strolling through the ruins, pointing at the wreckage like, Paul, remember when this used to be funny?
But to obscurity, nobody's going to care anymore. It's like you're seeing it take place with late night television. Nobody gives a fuck about it anymore.
I know.
And it's slowly, you have a bad business model and you're not adapting.
Yeah, the creativity's gone for late night comedy, right? Like that's not really a thing anymore.
Jimmy Fallon doing a song about different variants of COVID. But this one is so strange. It's like, what did they him up with to get him to agree to do this?
Let's talk about Jimmy Kimmel, America's favorite smug uncle who wandered onto a stage one night and never left. His entire shtick has devolved into a masterclass in what happens when a once funny guy swaps punchlines for preachy rants and thinks sarcastically clapping at his own jokes counts as satire. Watching Kimmel these days is like attending a stand-up routine at a tax seminar, except the accountant has a teleprompter and delusions of grandeur. Joe Rogan looked at Kimmel's last monologue and said, "If this is what counts as comedy, I want a refund on all my bad takes because at least they were entertaining."
I do get a little nervous when I'm seeing the left so happy, like the late night comedians last night. I'll give you a taste of how they sounded. If they're happy, I'm not happy. Like, I'm not happy about the fight, but I'm just saying I'm not like sad and all these people are like forlorn over. It's like, all right, grow up. They're having a dispute. It was bound to happen. They'll get past it. As you point out, Trump is extremely forgiving, and I'm sure Elon is too. I mean, Trump's not, whatever. Laura Ingraham reported last night she's been told it's irreparable. Nothing is irreparable with Donald Trump. Nothing is irreparable. But here's how the late night losers were making fun of it.
Elon gave us a fun one. Time to drop the really big bomb. Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That's the real reason they have not been made public.
Kimmel used to have jokes he really did back when he was making fun of himself, his guests, and everyone else equally. Now he stares into the camera like he's trying to win an Oscar for most disappointed dad at Thanksgiving. He doesn't deliver jokes anymore. He delivers moral lectures in a tone that says, "I recycle more than you, and that makes me better." If self-congratulatory smugness were a sport, Jimmy would be the Michael Jordan of it, Cryphus meme and all.
Of Seth Meyers. Jimmy Kimmel, 1.5 million averaging, also equally horrible. And then there's The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, who, back when I was there, 2017-18, he was averaging 2.3 million a night. Now he's down to 1.3 million, Jesse. And he cannot afford the "you are toxic" controversy because he's also pulling in, reportedly, over $15 million a year. So you got all that money for 1.5 million in audience, which is a nothing. I mean, the middle of the day on Fox News gets that, or at least used to before they took her.
And then there's Stephen Colbert, a man who once brilliantly mocked politics through a satirical character, then one day forgot he was acting and just became the guy he used to parody. Colbert's transformation from clever sadist to sanctimonious school principal has been so complete, even his old character is somewhere in a basement weeping softly while hugging a picture of Jon Stewart. Colbert's idea of humor now is dancing in elf shoes. and pretending it's political commentary that's not satire, that's performance art at a PTA fundraiser.
Look at some of their reactions to the news of Trump's win. Look at this.
Hey there. How are you doing? If you watch the show regularly, I'm guessing you're not doing great. Yeah, me neither.
Let's be honest, it was a terrible night last night. It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go. For healthcare, for our climate. It was a terrible night for poor people, for our allies in Ukraine.
Megyn Kelly didn't even need to wind up a punch. She looked at Colbert's latest monologue and said, "Is this a hostage video or a comedy sketch? Because nothing screams I'm totally in touch with the common man, like smugly moralizing about the perils of misinformation while your punchlines have the sharpness of a butter knife collar used to skewer everyone now. He just pokes one side with a feather duster while applauding himself for being brave. And let's not forget Seth Meyers. Yes, he still exists. He's like the sitcom cousin who shows up every 5th episode, makes a joke, no one laughs at, then disappears again into a puff of lukewarm oatmeal. Seth's entire persona is guy who tries to make every segment of his show feel like a group project in a poly-I class. He stares at the camera with dead eyes, hoping if he explains a policy failure in a condescending tone just one more time, maybe, just maybe, someone will call it edgy. Joe Rogan could barely finish a protein shake watching Meyers' monologue before blurting out, "Is this guy allergic to charisma?" Rogan interviews psychedelic shamans and people who think the moon is a hologram, and even they sound more convincing than Seth on a roll. Meyers used to tell jokes that landed. Now he delivers political analysis like a grad student who printed out his thesis 5 minutes before class.
They said they don't care that much about democracy. The first time Donald Trump was elected, he started as a joke and ended as a tragedy. This time he starts as a tragedy. Who knows what he'll end as?
Any comforting words for them, Pierce?
Just get over yourselves. Honestly, it's so pathetic watching grown men weep, because actually the real reason they're weeping is that they know they've spent years over-demonizing Trump as the new Hitler, and he's going to wreck everything and wreck America. He's terrible, he's a fascist, he's a neo, blah, 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 blah.
Meanwhile, these so-called late-night hosts who should be joking about the absurdity of it all, instead play human bumper stickers, you know, the kind plastered with virtue signals. But when you look closely, all the messages contradict each other. One night, they're defending free speech. The next night, they're scolding viewers for not using the right hashtags. Rogan and Kelly weren't even trying to be vicious. They just held up a mirror, and the reflection was so embarrassing it should have come with a viewer discretion warning. Rogan's entire brand is based on being casually skeptical about everything from keto stats to whether Bigfoot pays rent. So when even he thinks your show is a delusional fever dream, you've officially gone off the rails. Kelly, meanwhile, tore through the late-night lineup like a lawyer on espresso. She didn't roast them, she disassembled them like IKEA furniture, except this time, the instructions were written in basic logic, and the bolts were labeled "Try being funny." Megyn didn't have to shout, she just calmly pointed out the glaring fact that these hosts have become corporate echo chambers who still think Orange Man bad counts as a punchline in 2025. Newsflash, it doesn't. Seth Meyers could be discussing a new tech breakthrough or a natural disaster, and somehow he'll detour into a 3-minute rant about Trump's hairline like it's breaking news. Kimmel can't even say good evening without sneaking in a reference to January 6th, as if he's emotionally tethered to the Capitol steps.
Not Jimmy Fallon doing a song about different variants of COVID. Did you see that? Have you seen it? This one is so strange. It's like, what did they drug him up with to get him to agree to do this? Like, I want to be in the meet. I want to be a fly on the wall in that meeting where they go, okay, Jimmy, this is what we're going to do. You're going to be singing about all the different variants. And it's like, here's a song. And you're going to be dancing and saying, it's like, okay.
There was Alpha, then Delta, then Omicron next. But this latest variant might be the best. It's XBB.1.5. Another brand of COVID-19 has arrived.
What is that? That's insanity. Like, look at his little dance. Like, there's no enthusiasm in his face. It's like he's
Rogan and Kelly weren't triggered, they were bored. Late night used to be the pulse of irreverence, the beating heart of cultural commentary with teeth. Now it's a coddling circle of privilege, patting each other on the back for having the same opinion, then turning that into a skit sponsored by an oat milk brand. Nothing edgy, nothing risky, nothing remotely unexpected, just a looping soundbite factory where punchlines go to die. Even the audience is in on the joke now, not the one the hosts are telling the meta joke that this is what passes for comedy. You can hear the forced laughter, the desperate clapping, like everyone knows they're watching a hostage situation where the gunman is a teleprompter loaded with predictable one-liners. Rogan compared the vibe to being trapped in an improv class taught by your least funny coworker. And Megyn, she basically said, it's like watching your ex try stand-up for the first time and realizing you dodged a personality bullet. The worst part, these shows aren't failing because people hate them, they're failing because people stopped caring. The once great platforms that gave us Carson and Letterman are now hosting glorified TED talks with commercial breaks. They don't feel subversive anymore, they feel like homework. Watching them is like eating kale chips out of guilt. You don't enjoy it, but someone on Twitter told you it's good for your soul, and the desperation shows when your best gag of the week is Republicans are dumb, followed by 13 audience members clapping like they're at a wine tasting. You're not doing satire, you're running a support group for people who think laughing at the other team counts as therapy. Joe Rogan has guests who believe in lizard people, and even those episodes contain more intellectual diversity than a month's worth of late-night writer room meetings. And Megyn Kelly's podcast, at least she argues with people. These hosts don't even allow guests who might challenge their worldview. The closest they get to a dissenting voice is booking someone who once voted independent in a Taco Bell poll.
In the day when I was on the primetime of Fox and you were on the primetime of CNN, a couple of hours after our shows ended, late night comics would come on, and they occasionally would make us laugh, Pierce. I mean, occasionally they understood that they were in the game of making everyone laugh. As you know, they've abandoned that game now, and they're just political operatives out there. Colbert, Kimmel, Seth Meyers, who I struggle to even mention that guy's name. He's such an absolute prick. I can't stand him. But anyway, it's just my thought bubble.
Late night is supposed to be rebellious. It's supposed to be a cultural grenade lobbed into the temple of power, not a safe space where elite opinions are lovingly handed to clapping seals. The joke used to be on the politicians, now it's on the viewers because they tuned in expecting humor and got a lecture on the ethics of mean reposting. Colbert does a segment where he literally ranks politicians by truthiness, like he's handing out gold stars in a third-grade classroom of cable news, rejects Jimmy Kimmel, reads headlines like he's the press secretary for a suburban wine club, and Seth Meyers, he's delivering punchlines that sound like they were ghost-written by a civics textbook with low self-esteem. Rogan and Kelly aren't attacking these hosts because they're liberal, they're mocking them because their boring comedy is supposed to provoke, not coddle, not virtue signal, not repeat whatever CNN said an hour earlier. But with a smug smirk and jazz hands, if Joe Rogan has better comedic timing in a 3-hour podcast about elk meat and aliens, it's time to reevaluate the format. You know things are bad when podcasters are schooling comedians on how to stay relevant. Rogan and Kelly weren't holding court, they were just being the only ones in the room willing to say, hey, the emperor isn't just naked, he's doing jazz hands and calling it satire. These late-night shows have become reverse ASMR. Instead of calming you, they irritate you with smug whispers and underwhelming jokes. It's like they hired an AI trained on lukewarm New York Times editorials and told it to be quirky, and somewhere Letterman is rubbing his beard, wondering if this is all a long-form prank on America.
See what happened with Colbert's audience?
No.
Watch this. This is crazy.
Trump has kind of been thrown on his heels by this, and he's not really sure how to go after Vice President Harris. He knew his attack lines on President Biden. He really has struggled with how to go after someone who's 20 years younger than him, who is a different gender, a different race.
I know you guys are objective over there, that you just report the news as it is. Oh, I know. CNN makes it. I know.
That's supposed to be a laugh line?
I wasn't supposed to be, but I guess it is.
How crazy is that? The audience is like, shut the f up. That is hilarious.
No one's saying these shows need to be politically neutral, be biased, be wild, be whatever, just don't be safe, don't be dull, and don't pretend that smug moralizing with canned laughter is the same as comedy. It's not, it's just noise. No one is tuning in to hear another predictable dig at a politician. They already dislike, they want wit, fire, risk, something that doesn't feel like a rerun of a mediocre SNL cold open. But instead, we get more Kimmel pretending every monologue is the Gettysburg Address, Colbert turning every joke into a sermon with jazz flute transitions, and Myers delivering snarky political PowerPoints like a substitute teacher who just found out he's not getting tenure. Rogan and Kelly didn't need to scream, they didn't need to rage, all they had to do was laugh. That's how far late night has fallen. Just laughing at the absurdity was enough to flatten the entire lineup, because when your biggest competition is two podcasters drinking coffee and riffing off the cuff, and they're more entertaining, more unpredictable, and here's the kicker, more honest than your entire writing staff, you don't need critics, you need a reboot. Until then, late night television remains a time capsule of what happens when satire forgets how to bite and decides to hug instead, or worse, lecture. Rogan and Kelly didn't destroy them, they didn't have to. The hosts lit the match themselves, and the others, oh well, they just came for the fun.
Here's Stephen Colbert grappling with that news.
Now, if, like me, you're wondering why the Department of Energy is the one making this judgment, it's because that agency oversees a network of U.S. national laboratories, some of which conduct advanced biological research. No. Bad energy department. No biolabs until you finish building your electric car charging stations.
Late night used to be the home of wit, now it's just a retirement village for punchlines that died in rehearsals. Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly didn't even need a sledgehammer, just a flashlight to expose the cobwebs where comedy used to live. When podcasters are funnier than million-dollar hosts, maybe it's time to unplug the applause sign and rethink the script. If you laughed, cringed, or just enjoyed watching late night royalty get roasted without mercy, hit that like, drop your take in the comments, and share it with someone who still thinks Colbert tells jokes. Spoiler, he